the launch of the new goods, the rationalized GST on Monday saw big crowds, especially for the automobile sector. Auto dealerships, there are record number of bookings and deliveries which are taking place. Massive surge in the inquiries as well. Maruti Suzuki, Tata Motors, Hyundai are witnessing what many in the industry are saying are historic record sales as the onset of the new GST. Let me very quickly also give you some data. In fact, day one of the GST and how the car sales have been booming right in the top gear. Maruti, there have been the sales on the first day, about 25,000 units sold. For Hyundai, it's about 11,000 units which have been sold on day one of the GST. Tata Motors is not far behind with about 10,000 units that they have sold or booked, at least as far as the day one of the GST, rationalized GST 2.0 is concerned. Record inquiries on day one of the GST have also been reported, with Maruti, in fact, putting out the data that 80,000 inquiries have been made on day one, and Tata Motors said 25,000 customers, those who are interested in buying cars, have in fact reached out to them as well. We are talking about the everyday, the entry-level passengers car, but what about the luxury market? Massive discounts have now been unleashed. Rather, the rationalized prices have been unleashed by the luxury segment as well, where a Mercedes-Benz S-Class is 11 lakh rupee cheaper on its MRP, which was just before the GST rationalization came into effect. If you are among those who are looking at the luxury segment and you want to buy a GLS 450D AMG from Mercedes-Benz, that's about 10 lakh rupee cheaper. Meanwhile, the Mercedes GLC 304 Matic is 5,30,000 rupee cheaper in the market now, and the GLA 220D AMG is about 3,07,000 rupee cheaper. The Mercedes, that's the GLA 220D, which is about 3,08,000 rupee cheaper. BMW X7 at this moment is offering or is at 9 lakh rupee less than what it would have been day before yesterday. Audi Q8 is 7,80,000 rupee cheaper. Q3 is about 3,07,000 rupee cheaper. And A6 sedan, if you want to buy, that is about 3,64,000 rupee cheaper. Not a bad discount. Great time to in fact go into the automobile sector market if you are looking for a car. Let me very quickly go across to Siddharth Vinayaka Patankar, who is joining us at this moment, one of the most known, foremost industry expert, automobile, I can't call him an enthusiast. When I started, it looked like that. Siddharth, you have spent so much time in the industry. Let me ask you this. Is this cheer that we are seeing in the market at this moment, is it just a bump? Because usually in the festival season, we see the automobile sector seeing an upswing. Is it comparable to that upswing, or do you see something extraordinary which is taking place after the GST rationalization?
Hi, good evening, Ankit. Always an enthusiast, first and foremost. The point you're making is the whole sort of, let's say, attention that's on the sector right now. To some extent, it is something that happens every year. The festive season does always see a bump. The reason it becomes special, or why we're seeing these sort of record numbers coming now, firstly, there's been a lot of pent-up demand. There was an expectation of a GST cut. So for weeks, people held off their decisions. A lot of brands were aware of this, so they were also building up inventory. And we're seeing the sort of floodgates open on the 22nd once the GST regime kicked in with the lower tax tariffs. The whole point about how much of a price cut, we've seen brands over the last several days announcing this as to how much of a price cut each model is going to attract. What's the new price going to be? There were provisional bookings being taken by dealers. All of this has led to this massive unleashing that we've seen happen yesterday. So it's not surprising at all. In some cases, brands like Maruti are saying that they're seeing in certain segments or for certain variants, numbers which are the best in 35 years. Wow. That kind of euphoria was expected to a certain extent, but I think it's like the perfect storm. We've seen a lot of factors that have contributed to this, all culminating at this single point, which began on the 22nd.
Do you see this continuing, Siddharth, or do you see this like just a 1 month kind of a phenomenon? Because we bear in mind that there were also some reports and about the massive inventory that most of these vehicle companies had. There was a lot of worry about that as well. Given that aspect, do you see these good times for the automobile industry last longer than a month or 2 month period?
Look, Ankit, the pressures that the industry has been facing or the sector has been facing, and some of the pressures that even buyers have had, not a lot of that has eased. Yes, the lowering of prices. I mean, of course, you talked about some of the extreme cases where it's a huge price cut. But even if you look at smaller cars, the price cuts are pretty significant. It allows people to maybe at least now think about either upgrading what they were previously planning to buy, maybe even upgrading from a two-wheeler to a four-wheeler. So let's not forget that these prices are here to stay. They're not just a festive discount. The new prices that we have seen getting announced now are going to stay unless there's some huge change that we are unaware of at this point. When it comes to the inventory question, the dealers are worried about some of the cess that the inventory already attracted, the one that they had already stocked up on for the festive season. And that's a clarification that they're trying to work out with the government. So let's wait and see where that lands. But coming back to your point, can this be sustained? The industry certainly hopes so, because the first half of the year hasn't been great for the auto sector. And so there has been some part of it is this pent-up demand. And then some part of it is also a hope that this euphoria that comes out of having massive price cuts, and also a sense of well-being that is being forecast by some economists, saying that, look, prices are coming down across all segments, across lots of goods, might give a little more cash in hand for a lot of consumers, which means that this, even people who may not be buying now in the auspicious period, might look to still continue buying. So yes, some of that should continue. Okay. One little caveat there is that some brands are offering over GST price cuts, like in the smaller cars for Maruti, for example. Whether those discounts continue or not, well, there's a little bit of a doubt there.
Can I very quickly in the end also ask you, while we were talking about the price of these high-end or the luxury segment cars, the euphoria that we are seeing is largely on the entry segment sort of a vehicle market. What happens, this whole divide of the luxury segment, do they also benefit? Are you seeing that upsurge in the demand for them as well?
Well, the simple answer is probably yes. But, there's a layer to that, which is we're talking about a different kind of a buying or a consumer who has a different kind of spending power. So, yes, that discount is welcome. Whether it sort of leads to a huge difference in the numbers, that remains to be seen. And maybe let's be circumspect on it, because, the numbers are still pretty good. The base price itself is so much higher that even if you have a knockdown of 3%, it does give you a fairly good bump when it comes to getting a certain amount of discount on that car. Well, let's not call it discount, let's call it a new price. But again, the buying capacity of that individual, if they were always buying a BMW, chances are they will continue and buy a BMW. Whether it will mean like a massive jump in terms of overall numbers for the luxury segment, I don't think so. Whether we'll see a slight increment in those numbers where people might sort of convert from, say, buying a Kia to buying a Mercedes-Benz, sure, you might see some of that conversion happening. And so it's definitely good news for that space as well, but certainly not going to be the kind of bumper numbers we are seeing from the mass segment.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure hearing you speak about the auto sector. Thank you so much for joining us here on NDTV.